Do you want bigger and better deer for next year's hunting season? If so, you're going to want to stay tuned to hear my next guest. Next up is Jim Johnson. He's an experienced deer hunter. He's a recreational land expert on my team, and he has bought and sold and managed plenty of ranches. You're going to enjoy what he has to say. Jim, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you here. So I always want to ask, this is kind of an obvious question, how was your hunting season?
Oh, it was good. We're in the second year on a 700-acre place up north of Stephenville. So the first 2 years, we really focused on getting the deer herd where we wanted. Mm-hmm. So shooting a lot of does, shooting some management bucks, and we were fortunate to get a really, really nice trophy this year too. So it's really just kind of a work in progress to get the herd where we want it to be long term.
Gotcha. So you have been doing this for 35 years. You bought and sold lots of places. You got places ready for it. Tell us, now that deer season is over, what's next, so you can be sure to have a really good season next year?
Well, whether you're intensively managing or you're just doing it casually, the one thing that I would get first is to do a short census. Pretty simple process. Just to find out what's left. Most people that are serious about their deer would have had either a shoot, don't shoot list, or just an understanding that, hey, we're not shooting all of these, no does, or that kind of thing. So you knew what you were doing going in. Quick math is just, what did we shoot? Mm-hmm. Did we shoot 5 does and 2 management bucks and 1 trophy? But then leave your feeders going and your cameras out until the horns drop in mid-March, and just get a count of what's really there. Did some new deer come in? Did some deer that you've seen forever go to the neighbor's place? Find out what you really have. That gives you a baseline to plan for next year. Okay.
So when you're like on your 700-acre place, how many stands and feeders and cameras do you have?
This place there's not much open ground on it. It's brushy. It's great deer habitat. Currently, we've got 6 feeders, each of them with a stand. Okay. We also do, we've got some supplemental protein feeders that we don't hunt over and we don't run during deer season. We've got a couple of those, and they're all 1-ton feeders. So we have the 6 locations, and it's a little staggering when you start thinking about it, but we put the cameras up about the time that the deer start to push horns during the summer. Okay. So late summer they'll start to push horns. We put the cameras up and we keep them up and we watch them year round. Just again because we're in a new place and we're trying to figure out what's going on. I've looked at probably 75,000 pictures in the course since August until now.
Golly, just on that one place.
Yeah. You usually get on a single camera over a feeder something around 800-900 per week.
Do you got one of those ones that alerts your phone, or no? You go out there and get the cards every.
We're not that intense. Okay. Everything these days is short notice, but check them every week to 10 days. Okay. So we've got the 6. We do daylight observations, of course, like everybody else does. Yeah. You're riding around on a 4-wheeler. They just saw a great big 10-point over by the big tree, whatever it might be. So you get those observations. But the ones with where I can tell that at 7 o'clock in the morning, I have 6 different locations and I can find out what deer were there. Mm-hmm. So the census is pretty easy to do, just keeping them out after the season. Okay. And then as far as the census and stuff like that, you've got low fence, that's for your personal stuff. And then, if you bought a high fence place, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to do that. Does that kind of work the same way, or is there anything different about that? No, not a lot. Most people that do a high fence go to Parks and Wildlife Department and they get a managed land permit, which lets you manage more intensively. And the biggest piece of it is that you can start hunting with by any means, at the same time that bow season starts. So
Right.
you can hunt from October the 1st, roughly, until the end of February.
Right.
And it really just lets you take out management deer or spikes, or I've got too many does. But the gist of what you're doing in management is basically the same. You just get that advantage of having a longer season.
So you got a bunch of grandkids, and so speaking of taking deer out, right? So I guess they get lots of experience in doing that. Do you take your grandkids out there to help you with that?
Yeah, absolutely. My oldest granddaughter, I've got 5 granddaughters, and my oldest one is my hunter. She's 21 now, and she started hunting when she started going with me when she was 7, and then she shot her first deer when she was 9, and she's been hunting, steadily all the time. But we kind of make you earn your deer, even though that they're my grandkids or even my son when he was hunting. They're all involved in clearing brush and plowing and planting food plots and loading feeders and maintaining the deer stands. So yeah, she puts in a lot of sweat equity, and she got a really nice deer this year, probably her best one that she gotten, and it's a blast. I mean, it's memories that you never forget, and that's what all the hard work is for. We had a really interesting moment with her a few years ago. We'd been hunting this one deer for 3 or 4 years, had it on cameras, and it was on our shoot list, never could find it. We get into a place in the back of our place. It gets dark pretty early. Mm-hmm. So we got in early to the stand, and 5 minutes in, out walks this deer, and it's the one we've been looking for. So she says, "Can I shoot it?" Of course you can shoot that one. That's the one. So she shoots it. We go out, take some pictures. I said, "Look, it's only 3:30. I'll take this deer back and I'll drag it over there and field dress it, and if the management buck comes up, you can shoot." I do all that, get back in his stand. It's about 4:30, and here walks in the perfect management buck that we want to shoot. Uh-huh. She said, "Can I shoot that one?" I said, "Yeah, you can shoot that one." So I reached over to where the gun's supposed to be, and it was still out there where we picked up the other deer.
Oh no!
So she looks at me, I look at her. She blamed the guide, which was me. I blamed the hunter, which was her. So that's something we'll never forget. We tell that on ourselves every year when we get to deer camp. But those are the memories.
That's neat. And since we're talking about that, and since this video is really for the novice, right? Like somebody who's maybe just bought the ranch, they had a hunting season, whether it's a small place or a big, place, and they want to get their kids into hunting, whether they've got kids or grandkids. Do you start them with bow hunting or?
No, I mean, the biggest thing, what I did with Bo, my son, and then Alexis, start them off just shooting a gun that they can handle.
Okay.
And once you get the idea that they're going to like the shooting part of it, then we start, she'd go sit with me and then help with the feeders and those kinds of things, and just indoctrinate them into
right.
it. Get them off their video games and out, and I got in trouble for letting her ride the 4-wheeler when she was 2. She only pulled it through a gate, but she started young, so that's part of what her DNA is. And I've got an 8-year-old now that looks like she's going to be a hunter. The other one's probably not.
Uh-huh.
They're more Barbie girls. But,
yeah.
You just expose it to them, just like anything else.
Yeah.
The kid wants to play soccer, you expose them to soccer, or basketball, whatever it might be.
So when did you? I think that's great, because I think that's kind of what we lost here in with our kids in this generation. So make them do the hard work, make them follow around. When do you make them start, taking care of the deer after they kill it?
Well, with my oldest one, when she hunted by herself and shot the first one when she hunted by herself, I handed her the knife and she goes, "Okay." There we go.
She'd watched you enough times.
Yeah, I was the guide up until that point, and then when she went on her own, then she's on her own for the rest of them.
That's neat.
I have a good picture of her field dressing now.
Yeah, and I mean, I know who you are, and you basically you kill to eat, right? You're not just out there unless you're cleaning it, managing it.
Well, there's a fine line between are you hunting for the meat and are you hunting for the horns?
Right.
And it's kind of it's both.
Right.
But yeah, every deer we shoot, at some point, if we fill up, me and my buddy and the other ones on the lease, if we fill up our our freezers, we donate to either Salvation Army or Hunters for the Hungry or something like that.
That's awesome.
So none of it goes to waste.
That's awesome.
We get a lot of people. Just last weekend, I heard a guy talking about, it's just got a gamey taste. I don't know how am I going to fix it. And there are so many good recipes. Whether you put it in sausage or whether you're grilling the tenderloins. That, you know what you're doing. It's good. It's really, really good stuff.
Yeah. I like deer chili. The hotter, the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so the informal census, and then you had mentioned at one point to me about the need to do an overall evaluation.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, especially if you've got a new place, even an old place. What you want to know is, are you seeing deer from your stands? While you're actually in there hunting, to get preseason tons of pictures off your cameras is one thing. But, in game is you want to shoot these deer.
Right.
So you evaluate the stand placement, the feeder placement, food plots, really everything, travel corridors, everything on your property. So at the end of the year, let's say you hunted 3 stands that you really like, and you didn't see deer out of one of them.
Right.
Okay, what's the problem? Are you busting deer out like your way into it is busting deer out, so they're just gone when you get in? You made too much racket getting in. That's an easy one you could see. Is it visibility? Do you need to clear some brush? It could be something as hard as sometimes the winds are really tricky. So if you're hunting on the side of a hill or you're on a draw and the wind is pushing your scent toward the deer, well, that's why you don't see any. So, do you need to swap the location, go to a different place? But it's really just evaluating all of that to see, while I was in my favorite stand, did I see the deer I wanted to see? Now, you can follow that up by the pictures. Go back to your game cameras so you can say, okay, Tuesday morning I was here and he wasn't. Well, no, he was on the food plot, 500 yards away. So it's just evaluating, and you can change those things by clearing brush or, starting a new food plot, or all of the different things that you would need to say, okay, this one's not working and why. Now, you got some guys that hunt, they want the closest stand to deer camp, right?
Okay.
I just want to walk out. I don't want to go very far. I want to sit there.
They want to go back to their cooler.
That's right. I can get in late. I can get out early.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bother anybody. Or the other ones, it's just a scenic place. So we used to have a place on one of our old places that sat on a point on the west side, and it had some of the greatest sunsets you'd ever see.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that, that's great.
Yeah.
Do your thing. If you really want to see more deer, use this time to figure out why you're not seeing them in particular stands.
So I've got a friend who bought a 200-acre place recently, and of course they were all excited about deer season and everything, and they, the sellers left the stands and everything, and they didn't see anything. And so, for somebody like that who is a novice and just wanting to get started, what would you tell them as far as, just from a general standpoint, what do you want to look for when you're setting up your stands? And, if you're going to plant some oat plots or something like that, what should they be looking for?
Well, it's when I'm showing properties and people are saying, is this good for deer? And we'll talk about that. Is it the right habitat?
Right.
I was on a place this weekend that was mostly cedars and rocks, and that's not good deer habitat. There's got to be some browse. So my suggestion to them would be, and what I tell the folks when we're out looking for potential property is, you've got to make your 200 acres the most desirable 200 acres for the deer in that area.
Right.
And is it food plots? Is it supplemental feed? Is it clearing brush, so that you've contained them into that 200 acres, and the does are going to stay, which brings the bucks.
Right.
And you can do that with a lot of different, there's a lot of different options on it, but you need to make your 200 acres the best. Now, from stand placement, A lot of that's going to be just where you can get to a place to put a stand, and
Okay.
how open is it, and is there a place I can do a food plot. But pretty easy to find a spot, stick up a corn feeder 100, 150 yards away, and hopefully you're drawing them in.
You had said to me in a previous, before we were talking here about how the environment that deer like, what they're drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you go back, biologists will tell you they're water animals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obviously, got to have water, but they'll follow creek lines and draws, and if you only have one source of water on your place, that's where they're going to be. Which is another thing, going back to why don't I have any deer? If the neighbors have water sources and you don't have but one, they're gonna
Right.
they're gonna move. But yeah, they're on waterways, and they like edges. So if you've got 25, 30 acre open pasture, the deer are going to be on the edges of it. They're
Right.
not ever going to come out in the middle of it unless you put it in oats and you wait till late in the evening and here they come. So if you can create edges, so find an area that may be too brushy or overgrown right now,
Mm-hmm.
cut out a 2 or 3 acre piece of it, maybe leave a little finger of woods coming into it. That's what they like. They like to be not very far from cover, so that when
Right.
they get spooked, they're gone.
Right. When do you plant your oats?
Well, it's a little bit tricky in the fall, because if you don't plant them soon enough, then it starts raining. You can't get in the
Right.
pasture. But usually mid-September to the 1st of October.
Okay.
And you can, oats will grow anywhere.
Right.
I mean, basically any kind of soil. You can plant standard V&S oats, which are the cheapest ones, or there's some hybrids out now that have been, places like Stephen F. Austin and Texas A&M have grown some and developed them that have a broader leaf, so you get more production out of them. Costs a little more money, but a little more winter hardy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But oats are easy to grow. Plant them during that time. Right about the season starts, top dress them with some more fertilizer. So again, your oats are sweeter than the oats next door.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Little trick.
The oats are always greener on the other side, right?
That's right. When you fertilize them, they will be, and then you're just hoping you get good rain. This year was horrible. We got the oats up, a couple of 3 inches of rain early, and didn't rain a drop, and still hadn't rained a drop. So they all got
Yeah.
fried about halfway through the season. But hey, that's life in Texas.
What do you do? Like, now we just had this big ice storm, and like last year, you just
Well, and that's where supplemental feeding comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a brutal year for rain, and we're here in January, and they've pretty well hammered everything that's green,
yeah.
you might want to do some protein supplements. And
Yeah.
you can do that with blocks, which takes a lot of blocks, or you can get an actual protein feeder and just do free choice on that. And in stress years, additional protein, and then minerals. Minerals are kind of like vitamins for people. They say, well, is it doing any good? Well, I don't know, but it's not hurting anything.
Yeah.
So you put the minerals out, and do your horns look significantly better? Maybe not the first year, but long term.
Yeah.
And you'll know if you put the minerals out and they're gone in 4 or 5 days, you'll know they needed
Yeah.
them.
And then on a good year, Holly, I remember, I think it was a couple years ago, we had a couple places listed, and sellers were putting out the corn, but the deer were eating all the acorns,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that'd
Yeah,
save
if
you
you got
some
a
money,
big acorn
right?
crop, yeah, they'll stay on the acorns until they're all gone.
Yeah.
And that's their number one in this area. In other areas, like you go up into the Midwest, it's like apples, orchards and stuff like that. Here, it's acorns,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's live oak acorns is what that's their preferred, fall season.
So if you can find a place with a bunch of live oaks, you're doing good.
Well, no question. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing we look for. If we're looking for just great deer habitat, a lot of live oaks. Mesquites are okay too. They'll eat the mesquite beans, and they're high in protein. Cedars only for cover.
Right.
Right? Nothing eats the cedars.
Right.
Goats don't eat cedars.
So if you buy a place and it's covered in cedars, and basically you're going to have a plan in your head of how you're going to make that attractive to bring deer, right?
And you might leave a boundary around your property line of cedars so that there's a
Right.
visual barrier from the neighbors.
Right.
But inside, you may cut some lanes, a travel corridor. So if you know the deer are bedding down in one spot and then they're feeding in another one, cut them a nice lane through the cedars so it's easy for them to walk that lane. But you can manicure it. If you get into a place that's 80-20 cedars and oaks, it's just not good habitat for the deer.
Yeah.
You'd have to supplement so much that it'd be artificial.
Right. That's interesting. Well, Jim, if I here again, this video is for the novice people just getting started. So, what are some things that you could advise them to do? Other things to learn more about how to get their place ready.
Well, Parks and Wildlife does a really good job. I mean, you can go onto their site. There's another one. Realtree has a really nice site, and in there will be posts on how to do a summer food plot, how to do a winter food plot. When I'm clearing, how to. I found one a few years ago. I had a smaller property, and one of the things that I'd never considered when we were cutting cedars, we would take the cedars and lay them along our fence line, so that we had a natural barrier there, so that the deer wouldn't jump 4 or 5 feet worth of cedars.
Oh, that's a good point.
So we kind of made our own low fence.
Yeah.
And we were going to burn the cedars anyway, so we'd take the cedars and stack them up along our fence and keep them on our place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways that you can do that. The thing that, a couple of sources here that I've got, there's so much data's out there now.
Right.
And this is old school to read a book, but this is one, and this is pretty straightforward. It's white-tailed deer management and habitat improvement.
Okay.
A guy named Steve Bartella. He's on a lot of the hunting shows, and the thing I like best about this book, he goes a lot into habitat improvement, but he does it even to small tracts as low as 40, 50 acres.
Okay.
So those people that are in the 40 to, say, 200 range, he tells you, okay, how do I keep and hold deer on a small tract? And one of those, that's where I'd found that one about, okay, line your perimeter with some kind of a border. He talks about planting stuff or stacking stuff. So that's a really, really good source. This other one, this one's only been around, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. This book I got 30 years ago, and again, it's pretty direct, Producing and Harvesting White-tailed Deer. This one, the author of this book is a Central Texas native, Dr. James Kroll.
Okay.
He's been at Stephen F. Austin in their deer program forever. And his nickname is Dr. Deer. Everybody in the industry knows him as Dr. Deer.
Okay.
I actually went to a seminar a few years ago over in Georgia with him, and just a great, native Texas guy that his passion is deer. And in this book is more like, this is the Bible of what to do from habitat management all the way to harvesting, aging deer. This thing's got it all.
Okay, well that's great.
And this guy, like I say, grew up in Central Texas and got his roots here, and just a lot of knowledge in that book.
The king of deer.
He is Dr. Deer, that's for sure. He knows everything there is to know about deer.
You had also, we'll also put these links up for our viewers to see and go back and maybe look at, but we're running out of time here, so we're going to follow up with, you had talked about joining a wildlife co-op and how that would benefit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and if there's not a co-op, you need to start a co-op. And again, the Parks and Wildlife biologists are a real good source. That they will arrange meetings and help you, publications and notifications. But what you want to do, even if you've got 1,000 acres, if you can have a co-op with 5,000 acres, it's just strength in numbers. And everybody hunts deer differently. And around here, the old adage, if it's brown, it's down, right? If they see it, they're going to shoot it. If you don't want that, if you want bigger deer, you have to give them age, and they've got to have enough nutrition. If you're doing it on your place, but you can get 10 neighbor places to do it, the impact is just that much more significant. And you'll see, in 2 or 3 years, you'll see that influence of the management. And the best way to do it is just, during deer season, hit a bunch of the deer camps and see if you've got like-minded people. If they tell you, hey, I shoot 2 does every year and put them in my freezer, that's not the right guy.
Right.
Don't discount him, though, that he may still say, I might want to shoot a really nice buck every few years. What are you guys doing? And it's food plots, it's brush management. If you have those initial meetings and you get some data from other places that do it, and in this area, I can think of a half a dozen of them within 20, 30 miles of here that some of them are up to 5,000 or 6,000 acres that they have in this co-op.
Okay, that's great.
And then you'll have monthly meetings or somebody that gets in charge, and we'll send out, okay, who's shooting what are you finding on food plots? You planted cowpeas last year. How'd that work? You just have a coalition of hunters that are all on the same page, and the main focus, not so much with does. Does is really about carrying capacity. Do you have too many or you have just enough? With bucks, they need to get to 4.5 or 5.5 years old before they show full potential.
Okay.
And if you're not going to let them get that old, they're not going to get that big.
Yeah.
So that's something, if you can get that cooperative situation going,
right,
with like-minded neighbors, huge benefit.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is great information. Well, Jim, I am so excited that you came today, and we're going to put your contact information on here. And can anybody that maybe has just bought a place or looking to know what to do, can they reach out to you for help?
Oh, absolutely. Love talking about deer.
Okay. Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, it's kind of my passion, and it's made it fun in this real estate career that I can answer the questions that most of these guys have that are looking for recreational land. So, absolutely, just give me a call. We'll talk deer.
Last question. What's the biggest deer you've ever got?
well, big. Boone and Crockett score, we won't get into that because that's a little bit...
that's for another video.
It had 17 points and was about 20 inches wide. And the thing about it was, though, the cool thing, when you shoot that trophy deer and you go up and you check the jawbone and it's old, that just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
You know you've waited and let it mature, and that's the way this deer was. It was probably 7.5 years old, and at that point they start to decline. So that was my biggest one a couple years ago.
How long have you been watching him before you shot him?
This one was just the 2 years on this new place.
Okay.
Now, on our old place, we had deer that we put on the shoot list, and we didn't. One of them took us 7 years to shoot him after we put him on the list, so we knew he was old. But, it's not, and some of it's not so much how big the deer is, but like the one that my granddaughter shot that we left the gun up by the tree. That's the one we're going to remember the most, So, those are the fun ones.
That's awesome. All right, Jim, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.